Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have a Halloween spooky book recommendation for you guys today. So a lot of these books I have read in the past year. I love horror stories and I love ghosts and zombies and monsters and all things spooky, so I do read a lot of horror fiction. So these are kind of the best of what I've read throughout the past year. I won't be recommending any books that I have mentioned in previous videos, which I will tag up here for you guys. Yeah, the books in these videos are still fantastic as well, so now you have 2 videos of book recommendations for you for the spooky season. Yeah, as I say, I love all things spooky, so I am in my element at the minute. I realise this video is coming a little bit late, but I still hope that I am getting it out in time to give you recommendations for Halloween. I probably will end up doing another video at the end of the month where I talk about the books that I've actually read this month and the books that I recommend. Yeah, so hopefully you'll have 2 videos of spooky book recommendations, but anyway, let's just get into it. I've got quite a few books to talk about and I'm just really excited because I love all of these books. Okay, so I really hope that you enjoyed this video and yeah, let's just get into books. I've written out a little list of the books that I really want to recommend. 4 of these books, surprise surprise, are by Darcy Coates. Now, if you've been following me for a while, welcome back, it's lovely to have you. You will know that I love Darcy Coates. She is one of my all-time favourite authors because she writes everything spooky, haunting, ghosts, monsters, just everything, and I love her writing. The first book I'm going to recommend is The Haunting of Lee Haka by Darcy Coates. This was a fantastic take on a ghost story. It's an unusual take. It's not like any other ghost story I've read before, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the characters. I felt so connected with the main character and I was so invested in her story and I really wanted to know what happened, and it was so spooky and haunting, and the first opening few scenes are so scary in this book. It really freaked me out. I would definitely recommend The Haunting of Lee Haka by Darcy Coates, of course. Absolutely loved it. Fantastic ghost story. Classic ghost story, but with a twist. So yeah, that's the first of the Darcy Coates books. I then want to recommend Gallows Hill. This was fantastic. See, so it wasn't a haunting as such as like monsters, but it was haunting as well. You'll have to read it to understand, but again, a really atmospheric, creepy, I want to say ghost story, but it's not ghosts. But yeah, the main character comes back to a family home that she didn't even know she had because she was estranged from her parents. Yeah, and she comes to this house that has a big business, a winery attached to it, and she has to come and start picking things up from scratch, and yeah, weird things start happening in the house and on the grounds, and it's just a fantastic book. I absolutely loved the characters that worked on the land already. I really loved those characters. Yeah, and I loved it so much that I tabbed it, so you know it's good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Gallows Hill. A really spooky, creepy, atmospheric, isolating book. Really loved it. And then the second to last from Darcy Coates, I think maybe possibly one of my all-time favourites from her, and it's so different to anything else that she's written, and it is From Below. If you are scared of deep ocean diving, like I am, this book will scare the living out of you. It is so just gripping. It's just so terrifying to me. Deep sea diving is like one of my up there fears. It's just something I would never do. It terrifies me just being at like the idea of being in pitch black like hundreds of meters down into the water, not knowing what's around you. So imagine that, but you're also on a sunk ghost ship. Which is literally this book. It follows the story of a crew who are making a documentary about a sunken ship that sank about 100 years ago, I think. I can't quite remember. But yes, the SS Arcadia vanished without a trace during a routine voyage, and this documentary crew deep sea dive down to the depths, and it was fantastic. I was so full of anxiety when I was reading this book. Just the claustrophobia, the way Darcy has explained just how dark and silent it is in this old sunken ship. It's just terrifying. And what's really fantastic as well that I loved even more about this book was that it flips between timelines. So one half of the book is set from the actual divers' perspectives, and then the other is set on the actual voyage, and you find out kind of the reason why the boat sunk, which that is just as scary, I think, as the deep sea divers side. So yeah, I think this may be possibly my new favourite Darcy Coates book. Really eerie, really terrifying, if you are like me especially, and you are scared of deep sea. Really spooky. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then the last of Darcy Coates, I did a reread of The Haunting of Blackwood House, which absolute classic haunted house story. They are literally my favourite. I cannot get enough of them. And yeah, Darcy Coates knows how to do them. I would 100% recommend anything by Darcy Coates for spooky season. But yeah, The Haunting of Blackwood House is a particular good one. And then speaking of haunted houses, I did read The Whistling by Rebecca Netley. This was fantastic. This was such a gothic, atmospheric, isolating ghost story. It follows the story of Elspeth Swanson, who becomes the nanny to a small little girl called Mary. Her twin brother William died of extremely mysterious circumstances not that long ago, so Elspeth is called in to become a nanny for Mary to kind of recover from the loss of her twin brother, and just to get her through the passage of grief, and also to teach her, guide her, all that good stuff. But what's fantastic about this book is the house that they are set on is on a remote Scottish island of Skelsey. It's this huge gothic house on a remote island, and this young girl is going to this house not knowing anything beforehand really, and is trying to take this small young girl and get her through the grief of losing her brother under very mysterious circumstances. And obviously things start happening, things start going wrong. It's just very gothic. Definitely has like Wuthering Heights vibes to it, you know, like the moors, atmospheric. Really fantastic book. I gave this 5 out of 5. I absolutely loved it. And I will definitely be doing a reread very soon, I think, possibly next year. I love this one. So yes, The Whistling by Rebecca Netley, would definitely recommend this one for spooky season. I then also read Gallant by V.E. Schwab. Now, I forgot I tabbed this one as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I did give it 4 out of 5 just because I found it a little bit slow pacing at times. But it's, again, another very atmospheric read. So it follows the story of 16-year-old Olivia Pryor, who cannot speak. She has been brought up in a home for girls, in an orphanage, so to speak, and she has no memory of her family, where she came from. She then receives a mysterious letter saying that she is welcomed back to Gallant, which is her home, her family's home. And she goes to Gallant, and it's a very gothic, spooky, again, isolating, atmospheric house where there are only 3 people in it. There's something terribly, terribly wrong with the house. And it's just fantastic. But a little bit slow paced at times, but I did really, really enjoy this. A very good spooky read for spooky season. And just a beautiful book. Yeah, even on the inside of it, there's like artwork throughout, which is just, yeah, it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful book. Very well written. Again, it's V. Schwab, you know it's going to be a good book. So, would 100% recommend that. I then, very recently, just this month, so this book will also be in the wrap-up, I read Carrie by Stephen King. I've been meaning to read this for so long, and I don't know why it's taken me this long to read it, but it was excellent. It really lived up to its reputation. It is a classic horror for a reason, and it really made me want to watch the movie again, so I think I might do that. But for those that don't know, Carrie is a young girl who was brought up in an extremely religious household. She's bullied horrendously at school, but she also has the gift of telekinesis. It's very difficult to read. I feel terribly sorry for Carrie. The ending is crazy. It really goes off the deep end. So I would 100% recommend this for spooky season. Really good. The ending is intense, but fantastic. And then also this month read Near the Bone by Christina Henry, and I loved this. I will say, trigger warning for severe domestic abuse. A girl called Mattie who lives with her husband in an isolated cabin in the woods. Her husband is extremely abusive, so that is the trigger warning there. And whilst they are in the woods, they've come to realise that there is a huge beast within this isolated forest in the snow, and there are 3 strangers that come hiking in the woods, and Mattie is terrified of them, and terrified of her husband, and terrified of this monster in the woods, and it's just really gripping. I could not put this down. It was absolutely fantastic. A top tier horror book for me. Really, really loved it, but I will say, trigger warning for the domestic abuse, especially at the beginning of the book. It was quite hard to read, and I didn't know about it going in. Warning for that, but worth the read. So, so good. I absolutely love this book. I just want to talk about it now. I haven't finished it, but I'll probably finish it tonight. And this is No Longer Human by Genji Ito. This is the latest in my Genji Ito collection. I absolutely adore his graphic novels. I think I have 7 or 8 of them now at this point, and I've read all of them. This is just as fantastic as all of the others. Really, really creepy. The artwork is very graphic and intense and terrifying. The stories that the artwork is based on is always fantastic. Yeah, so I would 100% recommend this. I already know it's going to be a 5 out of 5, and I haven't even finished it yet, but I just know it's Genji Ito. Everything he produces, I love. So yeah, No Longer Human. And then a few books that I either listened to or read on Kindle. Oh yeah, I read a book called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and this book was weird. It was fantastic. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. It's a very short book. It's like novella length almost, but it was fantastic, but bizarre. And it's basically a narrative of the dangers of speaking to people online, and just how far people are willing to go for people that they've never even met before online. And it was bizarre but fantastic. I don't even know where to go for trigger warnings for this book, but please do check trigger warnings. Bizarre. It's a chat stream between 2 people, basically. It just gets weird and freaky, but I absolutely loved it and I could not stop reading it. Fantastic. I don't even know how to describe it. It's the dangers of talking to people online and the manipulation that can go on. Yeah, it just gets deep quick. I also, just this month, in fact I finished it 2 days ago, I read Nights of the Living Dead. I listened to it on audiobook, and it was a celebration of the movie Night of the Living Dead, which I still haven't watched yet. Especially after reading this book, I really need to watch that. So it was an anthology of short stories based around the 48 hours of the movie Night of the Living Dead, and the books themselves were all individually written by different authors, some fantastic authors that you'll know of. It did get a little bit repetitive because it was all about zombies, but obviously Night of the Living Dead is all about zombies, so it makes sense that it's going to be about zombies. But yeah, it was fantastic. Every single story was really gripping. They weren't, they were just very short stories as well. They were really fantastic. A great range of authors and a great range of stories, and I really, really enjoyed it. So if you're a fan of zombie stories and Night of the Living Dead, it would be fantastic for you. Really loved it. I also then this year read Horseman, again by Christina Henry, who wrote Near the Bone that I mentioned. This was a fantastic Headless Horseman retelling. Very gothic, very dark, set in Sleepy Hollow. It's basically like the origin story of the Headless Horseman, so to speak. But yeah, it was really, really good. Really loved it. 100% would recommend it. I'm very interested in Christina Henry's books at this point, because the only 2 that I've read I've absolutely loved, so I'll have to check out more of her works. But yeah, Horseman was really, really good. A little bit gruesome at times, but I love that. I'm weird. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Horseman. Really good spooky season book. I also read The Wicked Deep, and I wasn't sure whether I should include this in this video, but when I was thinking about it, it's about essentially witches, and every summer a lot of young boys drown. The witches come back every summer and they go out, and the myth is that they drown these young men. So it definitely has spooky vibes, but I absolutely loved the story behind this. I loved the main characters, loved the setting, I loved the history of the witches as well, of the 3 sisters, and it was just a really fantastic, gripping, I want to say fantasy thriller almost, but it was really good. Very much about kind of myths and legends, and I really like reading about those kind of topics. And yeah, there was a really good kind of twist in the middle. that really took me by surprise. I did not expect that at all. Really loved it. Was fantastic. And then last but certainly not least, I read Thornhill, which I think is more middle grade YA kind of, but I really loved it. It was a mixture of a graphic novel and journal entries, but it was just about a young girl living in an orphanage. Did the journal entries? Yes, she was the journal entries, and then it fast forwarded to in the future, where there was another young girl who lived opposite the old orphanage that was all run down now and closed, and her story was told in imagery and graphic novels and artwork. And yeah, it was just finding out what happened to the orphanage, what happened to this the girl who lived in the orphanage. Fantastic. Oh god, I could not put it down. I really loved it. Yeah, really, really brilliant. Very eerie. I was so gripped right from the very start. I read it in one sitting, I couldn't put it down. And I suppose because it's a mixture of journal entries and artwork, it was a very quick read as well, which I always find when they're a quicker read, I can't put them down. So yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. That was another 5 out of 5 read. Absolutely loved it. Would 100% recommend it. So that is everything. Those are all of my recommendations on this list. These are like the top tier books of horror that I've read in the past year. I've read way more horror stories than this, but these are all of the kind of top tier books that I would definitely recommend for spooky season. I have way more horror books that I could recommend, but I haven't read them yet, and I don't really want to recommend them until I've read them. So I'm hoping that the books that I read for the rest of this month are really, really good, and I can recommend them to you as well. So yeah, I will hopefully do a wrap-up video in the future. But yeah, I really sincerely hope that you have found some spooky books that you want to read for this fantastic spooky season. I just love it. And yeah, I really hope that you found some recommendations. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And yeah, I will see all of you lovely people hopefully in the next one. Alright, bye guys.